right. Hi, business builders.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to our, another kind of business growth community live Q&A. Thank you for those of you that are joining us. And for those catching up later, so glad to have you. This week, we are covering the past two newsletters. Actually, if you want to go to the next one, you get a newsletter from us each week. And we dig deeper into various business acumen topics. So watch every Monday in our business, growth community. You're going to get these newsletters. We're going to dig deeper into personal experiences in our business growth and just suggestions for operations, organization, all that good stuff. So watch for that. And then accompanying your newsletter, you will get a link to our boot camp video, which digs even deeper and spends more time on the entire topic. And a lot of our bootcamp videos are actually practical application videos where you learn how to do what we're talking about. So yes, make sure you check those out. You can get to them from our website and also on our YouTube channel, but a lot of them are actually practical application videos that dig even deeper and show you how to do what we're talking about. So awesome. Now, one of the things we started this month, so excited. We're calling it our Small Business Spotlight. And we are starting with an incredible woman, Ann Trossel of A to Z Event Rentals up in central Pennsylvania. And it was amazing hearing Ann's journey and story, right? Like she's a mom. She started 10 years ago. She was a dental hygienist. And on the weekends, she was doing chair rentals just for a little extra income, and it turned into this huge company. So make sure you continue to stay tuned in our business growth community and on our Saige Unplugged podcast, because we do an episode with Ann, and it's just super exciting to hear her journey. So welcome to our family, Ann and A to Z Event Rentals, and definitely check out her page. I mean, talk about a well-organized page, right, Ann? Leilani, that's one of the first things you and I talked about when we were.
Yeah, I mean, her website was streamlined very well. It's just very simplistic, but at the same time, it didn't lack any information that was necessary to make a purchasing decision, which is very important when you're a business owner. You want to make it as easy as possible for someone to check out and purchase your product or service. So if you want to find a very good concept of what you should be looking for in a website, go ahead and check out her website, which is A to Z Rental of PA.com.
Yes, perfect. So let's dig into this week's lessons. Leilani, I loved your newsletter this week about budgeting and just how vulnerable you were about your journey. I think so many of us can relate to this, but take it away, my friend.
Yes. So probably number one issue I come across with a lot of startup entrepreneurs, small business owners, or anyone wanting to become a business owner is really knowing what their numbers are and budgeting. It's huge. It's a huge factor. And I include myself in that statistic because of the fact that we're so focused on sales, we're so focused on generating revenue that we neglect sometimes to step back and say, are you really turning a profit though? You had $1 come into your business, but did that actually turn a profit? And the one way of really knowing if it's working or not is knowing your numbers and your budget, right? And so beyond just knowing whether or not you're profitable is if you are profitable, what do you do with that money? And so in my newsletter, I really kind of had personal anecdotes about what I went through. And I'm not going to go through it here because I want you to read the newsletter. But I will tell you, after really getting a good grip on my numbers and having a solid budget, what that did for me was help me improve my decision-making power. Okay. Once knowing what I was playing with, right? The money I had in my bank account to play with, I could make better decisions. And if I can make better decisions, it increased my confidence. And by increasing my confidence, I expanded and scaled the growth of the company. So it was a domino effect that happened all because I decided to sit down, get to know my numbers, and create a solid budget for my business. And so why do you need it? Well, first of all, you want to be on top of your finances. There is it's like that thing, the dripping bucket or the dripping water. You go into someone's house and the first thing you say is like, look, there's a leak on your ceiling. And chances are they know about that leak in the ceiling, but it was so minuscule they decided, hey, we'll get to it later. Well, if you're not on top of your finances, your money kind of works the same way. You're going to see a leak here, a leak there, a leak here, and you're thinking, oh, I'll tackle it later. But what ends up happening is a bunch of leaks ends up turning into a waterfall. And so if you can really stay on top of your finances, you're going to prevent the waterfall. Also, it will give you the chance of identifying opportunities. If you're on your budget and you're seeing places that you're overspending or possibly underspending, because that is a thing. If you have a part in your business that's telling you could afford to spend more in this area with a better rate of return, then you will be able to identify how to seize those opportunities. But you can't do that if you don't have a solid budget. And so I really went into the newsletter and talked about actionable steps. Okay. If you are numbers adverse, right? You know, just anytime you start thinking about, man, I gotta go and sit down in front of a spreadsheet and list out my expenses, or you really start thinking about, I don't really want to know how much money's coming out of that account, because you want to stay oblivious, right? Because ignorance is bliss sometimes, right? You just don't, it's like you cringe when you think about having to set a budget, because for you associate budget with sacrifice, right? If that is your grind, right? If that's how you feel, guess what, guys? That is what I like to call your frog. And Brian Tracy came out with a book it's called Eat Your Frog, and pretty much it's the saying, the most hardest, ugliest, juiciest, nastiest frog. Okay, or I said hardest, but it could be hard, I guess. If you had to choose when to eat that frog, would you do it in the first thing of the day or at the end? Best way to get rid of it is just get it over with in the beginning of the day, so you're not having to think about it all day long, and it is following you. That feeling, that dread is following you all day long. Just go ahead and eat the frog and get it over with, right? Just tackle it first thing in the morning. And so if numbers is not your grind, guess what?
First thing, right?
First thing in the morning, get it over with. Just sit down and say, all right, I'm going to spend an hour or 2 hours on this particular task. Now, in that book, he also details different ways to tackle that frog. And so I'm just going to go over really quickly. A short brief would be whatever it is that you need to tackle, especially when it comes to numbers and budgeting, if that's not your jam, is being hyper-focused and close all of the distractions around you. So you're sitting down in front of your computer with your pen and paper and all your receipts and get all your data, and you're sitting there in front of you and just say, for the next 2 hours, I am going to hyper focus on this particular issue and tackle it that way. Get rid of all the distractions, close everything off, get rid of your phone, and just sit down and do it. And if you do that for 3 days straight, you're going to have a better understanding of your numbers in those 3 days, because you ate that frog for those 3 days than you would have delaying taking care of that for the last 3 months. Okay. And I say 3 months, but it could be longer. So I went on a little rant there, but I just want to say that one of the steps I detailed out in my newsletter was identifying that numbers is your frog, and go ahead and eat that frog, and then how to schedule it into your schedule. So for me, I'm a morning girl. I'll go ahead and tackle everything straight thing in the morning. I suggest that for everyone too, especially tackling a frog. And then you'll be able to reflect, review, and adjust as you see fit for what's working with you and your energy levels. And that's how you get into a budgeting routine. Eventually what will end up happening is you will not have to be in your budget every single day. You'll be able to scale back. But in the first time, the first days of you getting into knowing your numbers, definitely making a routine of just waking up, do your morning routine, and then the moment you clock into your work or your business, just getting down into the nitty gritty of your numbers. Don't avoid it anymore and eat that frog. All right, and so with that, I had my newsletter was about budgeting. The following week, Kristen came out with a fantastic newsletter, and she's just going to dive a little bit more into it. Kristen?
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things Leilani and I have dialogued a lot about, and what I bring with me from what we're going through in the corporate world, is just really understanding how to connect with not only your customers, but your associates. And so I want to start with truly understanding what the concept of a bias is, right? I am a mom. I've had 2 children. And so when I am working in a store and a mom walks in with pushing a stroller and this child is screaming, chances are, if you are an 18-year-old part-time associate, you're probably not going to want to go anywhere near that mom or the screaming child. But someone else who's a mom like me, I'm going to have no problem with it. So one could argue that I have a bias towards being able to relate to moms. And it kind of goes vice versa, right? Somebody might come in maybe of a different nationality or ethnicity, and you may not be sure how to connect with them, or maybe there's a language barrier, or maybe there's just other challenges. So be aware of things that you find you're comfortable with and that you connect to and that you're a little more patient with, and things that you, because you may not understand it or be able to relate to it, that you may feel a little more cold or distant to. So that's really what bias is. So if you go to our next screen, these are really the major areas that we're hitting hurdles in the workforce as far as bias. So you may find a challenge to connect or understand somebody's ethnic and racial diversity, right? Or even their cultural diversity. Maybe you have somebody who is requesting specific days off and they're very adamant about it and they're willing to no longer have a job so that they can have these days off. But if you talk to them and get to know them, you'll find out that these are actually very holy days for them. And this is something that they need to be with their family or in their place of worship or meditation, because this is how important it is to them. And just because it's not something that you practice doesn't mean that it isn't important to somebody else. Educational backgrounds see this a lot of a challenge as well. You know, depending on what somebody's education background is, you may have a bias to believe that they're more capable or less capable of doing something. I mean, how many times do we source through who we want to hire, and because of what our educational background is, we're maybe looking for someone that has that or higher, thinking that person will be more adept to be able to do the job. But someone who maybe didn't even finish college could be the perfect, passionate, hungry person, depending on what your business is. I mean, obviously, if you need to hire a nurse practitioner, they have to have their degree. But other than that, there are other trade-based jobs that may not necessarily need a full college, background or degree. And then generational diversity. And this is really where the rest of the module spends a lot of time, because this is where we are hitting so much friction in the workplace. And you could even go to the next slide while I'm talking about this. I have had so many challenges and conversations with younger managers who are trying to understand how to lead and motivate and manage associates that are older than them, or vice versa. I have older managers who are just over it and fed up with these younger associates. And it's creating this friction in the workplace of how to deal with each other and understand how each different generation is actually approaching their work-life balance, the way they handle projects and tasks, the way they handle, when they're sick and needing time off. It's really amazing to sit back and watch. And it's not that any generation is wrong, but depending on what your bias is, you're going to feel like you can connect to, and you feel supported by the way one generation functions versus another. So as a business leader, when you own your own business and it's time to hire in people, being hyper aware of what your natural biases are and what these other generations can bring to your business is incredible. So that's really what I dig into in the module. So read it, watch it. I'm very passionate about it. If you need more help, call me. It's my area of passion for sure. So let's get into, I think, what is really the favorite part of these, right? It's our Q&A. We get so many great responses from these. Are you ready, my friend?
I am, but I do want to add, I really love your module all around generational and generations in business. It's a fantastic module. Go to the boot camp, guys. Go ahead and watch it. It's very informative. I'm just going to add that I know a lot of you watching are either you've just started your business, or you're thinking of starting your business, or or you're even a couple years in your business. at one point you will be hiring people to work with you. And this is something that every business owner will face. These generational ways, especially now. I think Kristen, mark me if I'm wrong, but 10, 15 years ago, this was so much of an issue as it is in the last, I'd say 5 to 10. And I think technology has a lot to do with that.
Technology has played a lot with it. I mean, COVID definitely shifted things a lot. And you got to look at who is raising who and what the kind of domino effect of that was. And just what we do naturally as parents, right? We want things to be better and easier for our children and so on. And it kind of goes down in there. I think there's an old wise proverb that's something, and Leilani, I think you were actually the first to tell me about it, but like it's, if you know what I'm talking about, please take over because I'm going to butcher it. But it's something about like, one generation will struggle and the next generation will have it easier.
Yeah, it's the it's talking about a man will walk 5 miles to school, right? And then the second generation, the guy will take the bus, and the third one will have a car, and the fourth one, and then eventually what ends up happening is the cycles repeat, and then that guy ends up walking back to school again or something. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But it takes like
5 generations,
to come back to a mindset and approach to what's going on. So nothing wrong with any of the generations and how they approach it. But I thank you for that. Yeah, it's definitely something that really hits my heartstring. And I would love to support. If you're in a place where you're needing to hire, we can dialogue further for sure.
Well, it's a huge, there's been so many books that have been written. One of them is Patrick Bet-David has a book that's called Hire Slow, Fire Fast, right? And it's so important that who you bring on your team can make or break your company. And so part of that, who you're bringing on, make or break, but then how you lead them once they are on, and knowing how to navigate these different generations is huge. So I think anyone who's thinking of bringing, and it's never too, I was going to say anyone who's thinking about bringing on team members, it's never too late. Prep yourself, because as you prepare yourself for the future, you are going to manifest the things you're preparing for. So look into it now. Take a look at that boot camp now, because prepare yourself for what the inevitable is. And that's to make sure you have a viable business, and to have a viable business means having others that are working on your team together. So definitely a good boot camp to check out.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Right. So first question is, if I don't make sales every day, why should I review my budget every day? And I love that question because, I just think about Ann, right? Ann Trost from A to Z Rentals. And she was a dental hygienist, and she was renting out chairs on the weekend. But at one point in time, I'm pretty sure she just looked at all the money going out of her bank account versus coming in, right? So I could see where you have that friction of saying, okay, there's no point in budgeting because there's no budget to be had. But yes, there is, because money leaving your account still needs to be accounted for, right? And that's actually
you pay for, the supplies you have to order, maybe payroll. But I think mostly it's subscriptions that catch us off guard, and those hidden things that come up. Right?
Those hidden fees, baby. Yes, because prime example, you open your business, the very first thing you're going to want is an email, right? Let's not even talk about the website. You're going to need an email because they need to communicate with people, right? And then let's talk about a website. You're going to want a website. Those have fees associated with them. And that is the start of your budget. Those subscriptions that you have paying out just to have your business, even opening your business, because if right now we're in the state of Florida, so we had to file and open our business, which I forget was $225, $250, I don't remember now, but that's still an expense that you had to pay. And then every year there will be an associated cost with renewing your business with that state, in this case, Florida. So that is still a budget. That's actually the start. That's like your seed budget. because every month you're going to know I need to make sure I budget this amount of money for subscriptions. And that's going to help you figure out, well, what's my target revenue for this month if I'm trying to cover my costs, right? And so knowing what your seed budget is going to direct you to your optimal budget that you look to achieve in sales later. Okay. So yes, you still need to have a budget and make and check and record your budget every day, even if there are no sales.
Yep. And to piggyback on this, I'm all about the organization and structure as you're building your business, because that's where I've spent 20 some years of my life, is in organized corporate retail. And, we read books like E-Myth, and they talk about having your business ready to open and making it turnkey from the start. So why would you check it every day? For the simple fact of creating a healthy routine.
I like that. Yes, right? Most definitely.
I have some managers that I'm mentoring, and I actually have a checklist of things that I expect them to do every single Monday to create a healthy routine. And I'm like, for example, they're brick and mortar, and they need to make sure they keep change in their drawer because they're constantly having to give ones and coins back, as they make sales. And I said, you know what? Every single Monday, no matter what, place a change order. And they're like, well, I looked in there and I didn't really need anything. I'm like, then order $50 in ones and that's it. But keep the habit going so that you don't forget it one week, because they definitely have been in the boat where they're having to scramble on a Saturday afternoon and walk to another business and ask to buy ones because the bank's closed. I'm like, you don't want to be in that, when you've got a restaurant full of, customers, or a store full of customers. So just to create a healthy routine, get in there. And for those of us who may not have been comfortable reading budgets, profit and loss statements, and everything like that, the more you do it, the less scary it is. So I think there's two great reasons for why to do it every day.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. And it's so funny because I love that Kristen's coming from the standpoint of, because I'm the numbers girl, right? I love looking at those numbers, and it helps my strategic side. But I love how Kristen came in from more of a personal routine standpoint. And yes, structure in your business, routines are essential, and reviewing your budget every day into a standard routine is essential. And I skip that over because I'm like, oh, I just do it every day, right? But yeah. I just do it, but it had started somewhere, and I love how you brought that up. Yeah,
gladly.
Okay, so the next question is, how long should I plan for daily, weekly, and monthly to review my budget? I think I might have said this on a previous Q&A.
It's a hot topic. We hear it a lot. Like, well, how much time should I give it? People are they're trying to be methodical, so they're like, okay, you want me to time block things? Tell me what to time block.
and I think that's so. Baby biting things. We talked about earlier about eating the frog and taking 2 hours to sit there. And I know some people's like, oh my God, 2 hours. When you are first starting out, you will have to take bigger chunks of time to kind of acclimate yourself to your number, to your finances. So bigger blocks of time in the beginning. And I say 2 hours is probably the max I would suggest daily when you're just starting out. I mean, I probably would say 2 hours, 3 days in a row, and then cut it out until next week. But once you have gotten over that big hump, which is just starting, I think a good routine would be reviewing your finances maybe 30 minutes in the morning, just kind of like, I think Kristen mentioned it on a previous episode, or previous Q&A about KPIs, and how she kind of reviews the KPIs in each one of the stores that she's assisting with. And that's part of for the daily routine that she does. And so I'm going to say the same thing here. Reviewing your numbers in the mornings, like reviewing your KPIs. It doesn't have to be so much about your budget, but it could be about just your overall financial health of your company. So 30 minutes every day is something I don't think will ever leave. I think you might change what you're looking at, but overall 30 minutes at looking at numbers. And then when you're talking about budgeting, when you're first starting out, those first 3 months, every single day you're going into your software, accounting software that you've decided on, and you're allocating expenses in there. That should happen every single day. And then weekly, you're reviewing your profit and loss statement or how much you've spent on a particular category, acclimating yourself to how much money's been flowing into your business. That's done weekly. And then monthly is when you're rechecking to see if you need to make adjustments in your budget to be better optimized for your operations. But that comes, guys, when that's not something, and I'm being perfectly realistic with you. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. 3 months of steady getting into your numbers is necessary. No successful business owner was created with aversion to their finances. And so you have to get over that aversion to knowing the business budget and finances if you want to be successful in business. And part of that is just going to be getting in there and doing it. And over time, like Kristen said, because you're exposing yourself on a regular basis, it will become easier for you. But that first 3 months will be a little bit difficult if this is not something you're used to. Then 6 months, you'll feel a little bit better. And by the time you reach the 12-month mark, you already have a great routine in place. It'll be second nature.
You're like an expert. Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm talking, what I'm saying is something I went through personally. But I'd love to see Kristen, please tell me what do you feel, about
So
that?
I think this does depend a little bit on what your business cycle looks like on a daily basis. Some of the members in our community do not make sales daily. They come after a service is completed, or I think like Anne, right? Like they book an event, but they don't actually see the money or the rest of it until the day of the event, or maybe whatever her billing cycle is. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Right. So if she hasn't had any sales for like 3 days or 4 days in a row because of what's coming up, I could see where people are questioning why still go in there. So things could go a lot faster for somebody that doesn't have a normal cycle of cash flow, like in a brick and mortar would, or something or like e-commerce, like you, right? You might have sales every single day. Yeah. But I think so checking it daily could be a 10-minute process, because all you're doing is making sure, okay, do I have any bills coming out today? Are the bills scheduled? Was there anything I missed? Did I did I enter my gas receipt from yesterday into the budget? Oh, wait a minute. I completely forgot about my cell phone. You know what I mean? It's just, you go in and it might only take you 10 minutes to go in there. But for someone who sees a regular, rotation of customers, yeah, it's going to take a little longer daily. And then weekly, I mean, every business that I have been part of gives kind of shopkeepers, if you will, almost a full 5 to 6 hours on Monday at the beginning of the week to really pick apart not only their numbers, but their KPIs. And then how can you influence the numbers that you need through KPI opportunities? And you've got to and this is like quiet digging into your business and picking it apart. Again, like Leilani said, leave the phone aside. Don't be, stepping away to look at Facebook or TikTok and see what's happening while you're doing this. You really need to take what you're looking at and see where do you have opportunities within your KPIs so that you can adjust and start bringing in what you want. Or, wow, we are trending higher on this. What can I do to adjust where additional funds will go in my budget so it goes to the right place and it doesn't end up getting spent on, celebrations, if you will. So that would be my take on it.
I love that. And so let me ask you this then, Kristen, do you agree though, no matter what, I mean, it doesn't go just because you got familiar with your numbers doesn't mean you can sit back and say, "Oh, I'm good. I don't have to go today."
Never, ever.
Right?
I think even, we didn't put it in this slide thing, but we talk about Robert Kiyosaki's, cash flow quadrant, and people moving from employee to then being self-employed, where they are the ones running the business themselves personally. So yes, you're going to need to look at your numbers daily, but you're also the only one, or maybe only one of 2 or 3 touching the customer regularly. Yeah. When you move to business owner and you have an operating partner or operating manager running the business for you and employees, and you don't need to be there for even maybe months at a time, maybe the business you opened, you have now moved to another state or even another country, but it is continuing to go. You need to look at your numbers daily still, because this is actually, Leilani, you and I talked about this the other day. It's a teach, test, trust process. Yeah. So when you bring in your managing partner or manager, you are teaching them, right? And then you test them by giving them the chance to run it on their own. And then there is the trust factor that they're doing it. However, this is still your business. You are still responsible for it. You're responsible for the health of it. Maybe it's not because you don't trust your managing partner, but you are responsible to sustain and grow this business so you can continue to pay your people adequately and, hopefully raises over time or bonuses if they're doing well. And with that responsibility comes the obligation to look at the health of your business, and the numbers do not lie. Health of your business is not sitting on social media likes or comments. It is sitting in your KPIs and your budget. And you can manage from afar. You can look at your numbers, and then you should be doing exactly what Leilani and I are doing right now, right? Your managing partner should come on screen with you, and you guys dialogue about the health of the business. They should have access to your profit and loss statements. They should be accountable for what's happening in the business. And then they could probably help brainstorm what could happen. But what's great is when you are sitting outside of your business looking in, you're going to have such a clear perspective of ways that the business could continue to improve and grow, or something that could be a red flag. So you're almost like a God perspective, right? You're looking down on what's happening and you can see this. So even if you have 5 or 6 satellite locations, look at your numbers regularly. And I just take that back to look at how big corporate stores run. The district manager or the regional manager that oversees the 5 to 50 stores that they're responsible for, they look at their dashboard every single day. Some companies I know get dashboard updates after major blocks of time. Like they'll get a 2 p.m. read and then a 6 p.m. read, and if there's a store that isn't where it needs to be, they'll reach out to that store. Hey, what's going on? Oh, you're in the middle of a hurricane? Oh, okay, I understand, versus, okay, what's going on? And so numbers never lie. So get used to them all the time.
They don't, and they do tell a story.
They do tell a story.
If your numbers are bad, it'll show how you're managing your business as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so next question. Thank you for that, Kristen, by the way. Yeah. I love how you dove into that. High-level view helps you figure out the next moves you need to make in your company. Sure. Okay, so the other question we have is, I've tried to hire diverse age ranges into my business, but the younger ones never stay, and why? I think this is directed towards you, Kristen, in your newsletter, so please take over.
So this totally tugged at my heart because I feel like I hear this question in some form or another, probably almost every month. So the challenge, so I would say first, you're looking at, you have divided your team, right? You've said the younger ones are never staying. So I would challenge you first on your mindset on how you perceive who you're hiring in. Are you hiring them in, expecting them to quit anyways? Therefore, you don't kind of give them the development and the connection that they need to truly feel a part of your business. Have you set up a bias that you didn't even realize, and you just have them quadrant it off? Okay, yeah, I'll hire you, I'm sure, but you're probably going to quit in a month. Okay, so check your mindset on that, first of all. But also, the younger ones never stay. So here's the one thing that I have learned about this next generation. They are going to go after what will help better themselves personally, or what speaks to what they are drawn to. So they are very big about something, them being part of something bigger than themselves. So in your business, hold on to your why, communicate your why. When you're hiring somebody in, make sure that what your whole why and the whole reason you started a business and how your business serves the customer aligns with them, because then you're going to get a deeper loyalty than just them collecting a paycheck. Because it's very true. This younger generation is going to go somewhere for 10 cents more an hour, and we hear these things on LinkedIn and all these posts saying, people work for people and people don't leave for money. They do, when they don't feel connected. It is true. People do work for people, but you will lose them if they don't feel connected to you. So I would say this: check first, because if you're willing to say the younger ones never stay, have you put them in a box already? And are you treating them a little different because of that? And then as you hire, you need to find, because they are out there. There are young ones that have a passion for something in every industry. So find him or her and get them excited about what you're doing and tap into what they are good at. Chances are this younger generation is actually extremely tech savvy. They're very excited to show off what they know how to do and simplify your systems. So don't be so stuck in the mud and saying, well, this is how we've always done it, or this is how I'm comfortable with it, or AI is evil, or all these things that, we older ones might say, and tap into somebody who could make your life a lot simpler. So that's what I would say around that one. Leilani, what about you? You have a diverse age range that you have hired.
Yes, but I really love how you already said, if you're wording the question this way, check your bias. I love that, because I didn't actually catch that until you said it. I was like, that is true, but just the way the wording of the question. Most definitely the why. I agree with you 100%. I think when you are hiring, and the good thing about being a smaller business, we are more connected with our why than I mean, Kristen, you've worked with so many different corporations. Have you ever worked with one that their why was connected even down to the lowest level?
Yes.
Yes. And
yes.
Was it easier to work with multiple generations because of that?
100%. And it's funny, that particular corporation was actually on one of the lowest pay scales of their competitors within large centers.
See, okay, and I'm like how you brought that up, because that's where I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
In my smaller, I'm not an enterprise level at any means, right? But with our business and hiring in, we were not at the higher end of the pay scale. However, my team was completely connected with what our why was and what we were trying to accomplish. And because of that, when we came against challenges, and I had to say, I cannot afford to pay you more because of certain challenges the company was going through, there wasn't a, well, I got to leave you. It was a, we'll get through this together, kumbaya, symbiotic relationship. And that, I think that's the most important thing, is being transparent, open, clear with what your mission and why is. And if they align with what your why is and your mission for your company, you will have them already bought in. And so having that question say they never stay, or they're not staying, that's not going to be there for you.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that they don't, it's not to say I haven't had team members leave for opportunities that are paying more, right? And I think that's a financial decision they had to make. But one of the things that I came across when that was happening, they always said, I have to leave because there's this opportunity that's coming in, that's going to be paying me significantly more. It wasn't a little bit more, it was significantly more. However, on my off hours, I would still like to come into your place of business and continue working with you. Right. So it was always I'm leaving, but if it doesn't work out, can I come back? And so that's another thing I just want to point out too, is when you're connected with your why, if they do leave for better opportunities out there, they're still going to be thinking about you and ways to incorporate your business still within their livelihood.
Yeah, and you said something else really key too. And, this younger generation, money's an important thing for them right now. A lot of them are not in a place where they're going to be getting much from mom or dad or anything like that, just looking at what has all transpired in the past 15 to 20 years. So money is important to them, and they are willing to balance school and possibly 2 or 3 other jobs. A lot of them are doing that. So if you're losing them, could the other factor be that how could you work with their availability and schedule and come up with something that balances them getting another job? when you can be upfront during the interview process and say, you know what, these are the absolute times I will need flexibility from you, but I understand you're probably going to want another job. So how can we negotiate this and make this work so that you can have another job on these 4 days and work for me on these 3 days or something like that. So
yeah, and I was actually in Be Chic, we work on a 4-3 schedule. So upon hiring and just dialoguing with whoever's coming in, letting them know part of our mission is a work life, having a great family work life balance, and having a 4-day on, 3-day off is essential for us as part of maintaining that balance. We do let them know, though, that having those 3 days off opens up opportunities if they wanted to add an extra income here or there. We do understand that. And so we're open with that.
that's interesting.
But it is. And I've even had it where I've had team members come on and say, they wanted to work at Disney because they wanted the tickets. They wanted the benefits of working at Disney, right? Yep. And so they said, we just want to work a couple days a week, or 1 day a week or something like that. And I'm like, okay, what day are they wanting? Oh, but they want us on this day. And I'm like, cool, we'll switch around the schedule. We'll make it work. Being flexible is huge. And it does create that loyalty factor where they don't want to leave
100%.
because they see you wanting to work with them.
Yes.
So great questions.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is, it's hard not to schedule certain people who happen to be older more because they are harder workers. What should I do differently? Ooh, Kristen. Again, this seems to be right up from your newsletters. So take it over.
So this is a challenge, and this is really why I focused the newsletter on bias. I had this question first, and that's why the newsletter went the direction that it did, actually. So I'm speaking to you. You know who you are out there, my friend. Anyways, yes, it can feel hard, but chances are you biased to the individual that you want to schedule more? You kind of understand their work ethic and things like that. And you want to give them more hours. Now, I will say this, as a business owner, you have every right, and you should make it crystal clear that hours will be given based on productivity, dependability, and availability in that order. It keeps it very fair, right? So when you come to work, and how could you measure productivity? It depends on what it is that you do. Something with Leilani's, with e-commerce, maybe it's how quickly can you correctly package things and have it packaged in a way that it won't break and have the labels on it look good, but so how many, packages can you prepare an hour or a day? Or, if she has people that are in, communications and something like that, how many, follow-ups can you send out, or how many new accounts can you launch? There are ways she could measure productivity and so on. So when you're upfront and honest with your team about how you determine productivity, I think you will be surprised, especially this younger generation. They like to have a goal that they meet. It's very methodical for them. So I would challenge you first as a leader. Have you made it crystal clear what great looks like as far as productivity? And have you trained everybody for that? The benefit of somebody being older is they have worked other places and gain more experience. So they are going to have a more efficient way to do certain things, especially when it's customer facing, because they've had time to build up confidence and experience probably somewhere else. So that's probably why you feel they're a harder worker. You have younger ones, especially if this is their first job within your industry, they may not know what to do. They're willing to do stuff, but they may not know what to do. So I'd say before you really put anything on them, you need to look at yourself as a leader first, and have you thoroughly trained them, and have you made it crystal clear what the expectations are and what great looks like, and then regular follow-up around that. So try that. I'm going to throw that back at you. So Leilani, what would you do?
I love that. I think, it's so funny because what you just stated it's applicable not only for hiring, scheduling. In this case, they're looking at scheduling.
Mhm.
It's anything in project management. If there is a project, there's an end goal. But having that end goal clearly stated, what is the mission of that particular project? So in this case, if you're brick and mortar and you're selling it, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but brick and mortar, the end goal is to sell that particular product.
Sure. There is a set of KPIs usually. I know a lot of restaurants will talk about plates per table, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, who can recommend enough additional items to the guests sitting at their table to have the highest plates per table? Or in retail, a lot of times we'll have either units per transaction, like who can sell the most units to a customer, or they'll have conversion, right? How many people walked in the door and how many actually made a sale? And actually, you can use conversion too on phone calls, right? When you're virtual based. So yes, there is a KPI that you can track for the results that you want. And when you make that clear and you give people the tools for how to do it, that's when it becomes a fair playing field. And then that's where you can, but you need to say, you know what, I'm going to schedule based on productivity, on and yes, availability as well. But it first has to go to that productivity. It has to.
It has to, and but just being very, again, being very clear and defined on what productivity looks like. So, for example, in Be Chic, we were making fashion accessories, jewelry, and what we would do is there would be kits. Part of what we do in Be Chic is we have kits that are made, and these kits are picked up by people who come, contractors that come to our office. They take these kits home and they make the jewelry at their home. So we actually do made in the USA jewelry, and part of that is sustaining the mission. What I say is family impact and doing that work-life balance that I was talking about. And so we give people the option they can come and work within the office or they can work at their home, and most choose to work with their home, right? So they do a pickup and drop off, but they're paid based on productivity levels. And it's already set that we have a standard rate of productivity based on this, and your pay is dependent on how fast you can do it. Now, some are not as fast as others. And I think at one point we were challenged with, oh, well, this person doesn't do this design particularly fast, so let's give it to this other person who's faster at doing it. It was a more difficult design, but this person's able to do it quicker. And there's a bias there, because really, if you think about it, just because one person's quicker at doing something than the other doesn't mean we should. You've heard the term handicap, right? We shouldn't handicap that person and say, well, let's just give them the easy designs and patterns because it's easier for them, and give all the hard ones to this other one. That's not really fair, right? We should have it equal. And so really just being transparent and very clear with that vendor, or that, I should say, it's not a vendor, but it's a contractor that we hired, that this is the standard rate of what a particular item should be produced at. You're producing it at this rate. Now, I completely understand it's taking you a little bit longer to do this. Let's work together to see how we can maybe increase your efficiency. Maybe there's something that you're doing, a technique that you're doing that's not really working for you. Let's see if we can increase that for you to get you to this rate. And I think having those clear goals, right? Like you said, Kristen, you know how the productivity, there is a number associated with productivity, having that clear goal. And then from there, working with them, what is it that you possibly are doing that's not getting you there? Now, there's another factor, which is, and it could be also their personality, the psychology of one, right? Maybe their talents are not aligned with what their current job position is. And at that point, if you've already trained them enough to try to get them up to productivity level, then maybe revisiting and saying, maybe they're better suited for another position, right? That has a different,
you said that. Yes.
A different set of productivity KPIs. But yes, I think this question is a loaded question, you know, because I'll have a lot of contractors that they are older than 65, you know, and the ambidextrous, how they are, the dexterity varies on that age level. And I've had to be very clear on, this is it, but guess what? We can work with you. And if that doesn't work, let's try this instead, yeah.
I appreciate what you did from a corporate lens, what you just talked through. Those of you listening, you may hear about DEI a lot: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, diversity, that's easy to understand, right? Make sure that you are accepting from everybody's different and different in so many different ways, and embrace that. And then inclusion too is making sure that everybody feels part of the team and you're not ostracizing anyone and you're not treating anyone better or worse than the other. But the equity, that's a hard one to understand. But what you're describing is making the playing field fair for everyone based on their experience and skill set. So it is possible that your younger generation might need a little bit more of your time to train them the right way, or to help them find the most efficient process to do something. And that might mean you need to work beside them for a little bit. But when the standards are clear and they know they need to get to that, then it becomes, then you can challenge, is it skill or will? But until you make skill equal for everyone and everybody is trained thoroughly on it. But I so appreciate, because as part of equity is everybody in the best suited role based on their talents. And guys, this doesn't mean in the end you challenge your business and keep someone just because they're a really nice person. When you make things really clear about what you need from them from a productivity lens, and you can consistently communicate where they're meeting those expectations and not, there may come a time where there's someone you have to exit from the business. Actually, I know, Leilani, you and I have talked about that, because your teammates are so close to you. I know you view them like family members. And there were times where I know, do I need to let some people step away based on productivity? You and I have dialogued about that. So hard, especially when you built this care and compassion for these people, and maybe their story, maybe you work with them enough, a year or two, and you're like, their story, their pet's name, maybe you've gone to their house for a holiday. But in the end, you, as a business owner, especially when you're self-employed and it's only you impacted by your business decisions, I think you could be a little more heartfelt. But when you are officially a business owner and you are responsible for those that you're employing into your corporation, you have a responsibility to all the others. And that's really delicate and it's really hard. But I think when we keep our why in focus and we create an even playing field and we communicate the expectation and follow up regularly, a lot of times those associates who aren't keeping up, they know it themselves and it doesn't feel as comfortable there. And some of them will choose to say, you know what, I don't know if I'm right for this. I even had one sweet girl, bless her heart. She was just like, I know what you're going to tell me, Miss Kristen, and I'm so sorry. She was like, I think I will be best as a customer here and not as an associate. And I've loved working with you, but this pressure to do this isn't what I wanted, for employment. I'm going to do, and she actually went somewhere else completely from sales. She went into teaching, that was much more where she felt that she would excel. And she's doing great. And she is one of our most loyal customers at this particular business. And it's wonderful, but it's because the coaching came from a place of compassion and care and being honest and consistent with every single associate.
I love that. I love that.
Themselves. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. It's emotional, especially when they become like your family members.
Oh my goodness. I think one of the biggest lessons I had to take out of training, right, leading, is that sometimes the toughest decision is a necessary one, and they are actually better for it, because the opportunities that opened up for them after their exit was so much better and well aligned with who they are versus where they were currently working, which was whether it was with me or someone else. And then the other thing about that is the skills they learned in that time at my business, or Kristen at yours, no matter what, they take with them. So just talking about the young associate you were talking about, sales, she is able to apply that to teaching, whether or not you believe it, because how she's handling her students is probably a lot like how she had to handle whether her coworkers or the customers walking through the door. So that set of skills she's taking with her on to the next endeavor she's on, that better aligned with her psychology.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's sometimes, letting them go or letting them make the decision to make their exit is the best thing. It's the hardest, but yet it's the best thing.
Yeah. It is hard. Well, great questions this time.
Yes, really good questions.
So, business builders, we're so glad that you are part of our community. Just a quick reminder of, what you should see. I know right now we're on Facebook. We're working on that. We'll see where else, this community takes us. But Facebook doesn't always put things in front of you. It depends on where you spent some time and applied some likes. But just remember that we do these twice monthly. I am going to be vulnerable and put some things out to you. I think as we get closer to the holiday season, we may actually pre-record a few of these versus having you in live, just because of Leilani's and my schedule. And what I know you guys' schedule is too. For a lot of you, the holiday season is going to get very hectic and you will be working longer days. I know it. I've heard it from you and I feel it. So we're going to be transparent, but we'll get back to the live ones for sure in January. But I'm thinking your November and December ones are going to be pre-recorded, just so that you all can take time and do what you want and do what you need to for your business. But Leilani and I need to do the same for ours as well. Mindset development, those come regularly. And if you have things that we could do better for you, please tell us. Don't forget about that newsletter. I love writing my newsletter. Like, it's so much fun. I love sending it out to you guys. And then just interacting with each other in the community. So we really hope you're getting a lot out of this. We would love to hear additional feedback from you guys. How can we make it better? But we have the business growth community. And then next slide, our Saige Unplugged, right? Join Leilani and I for a little after hours cocktail as we discuss many of these business topics and tie it back to various books that we've been reading or are currently reading, and just how we're working on bettering ourselves and bringing you on that journey of growth as well. Right? So thank you guys so much for being part of this one with us tonight. And for those of you who joined in later, thank you and have a great evening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.